One world, your station.
Hi, fine directors. Hello, Abhishek. Hi, Ashwini. Hi, Saket.
Hi,
Good to
Hrishi.
see you guys. Abhishek, I believe your film in Ankahi Kahaniya is based on a Kannada story. So, who brought that story to your attention? How did it grab your attention? I want to start with that, please.
Yeah, so I'll have to thank my wife for that. My wife Chetna actually, chanced upon that story and she read it and casually mentioned it to me one day that this is a lovely short story and I wish somebody would make a film on it. And thereafter I picked it up and read it and then I said, would you be okay if I do it? And she was said, of course, why not? And so that's how it really happened. I mean, Jen Kalkini has written a fabulous, his collection is a fabulous collection of short stories that are set in Bombay in the 80s and the 90s, which is when he was living in Bombay. And some wonderful stories in that collection, and this was one of them. And yeah, I mean, and it's quintessential Bombay. I had never done anything that was set in Bombay, so this was my opportunity to do that.
Nice. Now, Ashwini, sometimes what happens is that you work on a script and suddenly real life throws situations. And sometimes, it is done with intent. Migrant laborers' problems have really come to the fore because of the pandemic. Was your film prompted by the pain of migrant workers that you've seen over the last year or so, or you were already working on this script when all of this happened?
No, we were not working on the script when all of this happened. I do believe that a lot of the stories which we say would always have some kind of impact from the environment. And when the topic was given as love, love has a lot of interpretations. And when Piyush came up with this idea, I just felt that this was something which had to be spoken. And loneliness came as a huge interpretation which was very necessary, and it so happened that it all came in together. So yeah, you just got it right. So yes, so there would be some kind of influence. Yeah.
Saket, I'm going to make a statement. I just want your thoughts on that statement. Yeah. So marriages would break up in the old India because wives would put up with their husband's infidelity because they were helpless. There was pressure from society, parents, in-laws, basically what I call lachari. But marriages in modern India are not breaking up because wives are understanding their husband's infidelity and are willing to forgive and forget. You agree with this, or you have thoughts on it?
I mean, as Zoya's character says, she says that infidelity is a reality of modern marriage. So there is a certain kind of understanding that about infidelity, which is now been looked away from the black and white of what infidelity was seen as earlier. But I think the big thing is that today earlier people would stay in marriages because of external pressure. Dunya kya kahegi, society kya kahega. But now marriage is so much about personal accomplishment. That walking away from a marriage is personal failure. That you chose the person. You decided that you were going to be with this person. So when you walk away, you're in a way telling that, I'm not a good decision maker. I choose wrong people. So that is a lot of pressure because of which people a lot of times struggle to walk away from a bad marriage.
I'm very familiar with all three of your filmography. I'm a big fan of your filmography. And, sometimes what happens as an audience is you think that boss, you know the director, even though you don't know the director through their work. And I want to ask you this, Abhishek, did you have alternate endings? I understand, there's a Kannada story, you have to stay true to some basics. But were you tempted to change the ending in the original Kannada story and make it a boy meets girl living happily ever after with each other? I mean, I'm just asking, did you toy with that idea at all?
I mean, if that idea ever came into my head, it was squashed right away. I think it did when Rinku very innocently asked the first time she read the script was why do they do what they do, and but it was immediately quashed. I mean, given my filmography, they would have shot each other in the end, actually.
True that. I was trying to be polite, saying you don't do the straight and the narrow. But well said. Now I want to just get into now the casting. Who's the girl opposite Abhishek Banerjee, the actress? I don't mean the mannequin. Where did you find her, Ashwini? Have you worked with her before? Because she's quite stellar. I mean, she has these few scenes, but she really stands out.
You're talking about TJ Banu. So TJ
Yeah.
Banu is a find, and I would give credit to Mukesh Chabra for that, is because we were trying to find someone who is a village girl, a small town girl, but is pretty sorted in her thinking, and that was very important, is because you could not there are a lot of layers actually in all the characters, and this character was that she understands, and therefore she's okay to see it as just a very normal thing.
Yeah, great choice in that by Chabra as well as you. Saket, Palomi and Zoya Hussain are interesting choices. I mean, Zoya at least is known for her very indie kind of work. But Kunal Kapoor and even Nikhil Dwivedi to an extent are mainstream commercial actors. Talk to me about bringing them together. Did you have to test them, read with them, do look tests, or were you just convinced that these are the set of actors you want without going through any of that?
So one was that, I mean, this entire casting was done through Zoom, because this was done in the middle of pandemic. So that was a big challenge. You know, every actor was spoken to, you know, on a Zoom call like this.
Yeah.
But I think the thing was that with Kunal, when the name first came, our reaction was, you know, that Kunal's too good looking a man for his wife to cheat on him. You know, Kunal is the kind of guy other wives cheat on with. But when we spoke to Kunal, you sort of get a sense of how deeply sensitive he is and how vulnerable he is. And that quality sort of, you know, made him an immediate sort of the right choice for the film. With Palomi and Zoya, the thing was that with Zoya, our brief was a woman who never really experienced what it meant to be a girl. And with Palomi, the brief was a girl who's refusing to become a woman. So, you know, so those two, in a way, had to be counterpoints to each other in different marriages. And Nikhil, I've known Nikhil for several years, actually, but I've never saw him through the lens of as an actor, because I've known him in different forms. And I sort of was struck when I saw him in Scam. I've seen him after a long time in something, and I was really impressed by his performance. And, you know, the idea of this man who's so driven by success that even his personal relationships are a measure of that. You know, who I am with is a sort of reflection of what I have accomplished in life. And he's sort of this idea of this ruthlessness was sort of very well reflected through him. So that's why we cast him, and that was how we had selected our actors.
It's very beautifully answered. Abhishek, it must be fabulous to have a proper director's showcase in Ankahi Kahaniya. Let me explain myself. The films don't start with the hero's name, the heroine's name, or even the name of the film. It's just the name of the director on a black screen in the beginning. And that must be very, very special. Talk to me about that.
Ashwini.
Abhishek, the question is to you.
My internet actually froze for a few seconds, so I can't kind of.
Okay. Do you want me to take the question again, or did you get the question?
Very helpful. Yes.
Yeah. So it must be fabulous, Abhishek, to have a proper director's showcase in Ankahi Kahaniya. The films don't start with the hero's name or the heroine's name or even the name of the film. It's just the name of the director in a black screen, on a black screen in the beginning. And that must be very, very special to you. Talk about that.
I mean, you know, I think it's a feature of anthologies where, I think director becomes the sort of, within quotes, the star, and that's wonderful. I mean, you know, but I've never taken all this very seriously. So it's good. I mean, you know, if 5 people watch it because of my name, good. I mean, the more the merrier. It's fine.
It's okay either way. Is that what you're saying? Okay, fine. Ashwini, Ronnie Screwvala, Ashi Dua are both established names in the business with a very interesting body of work. Please talk to me about what you admire about your producers.
I really admire Ronnie Screwvala because he is someone who, when he believes in the idea of a person, of a creative person, he would go length and breadth to make sure that he gives that kind of wings to for the person to really achieve what they want. Also, he is very straightforward and honest, but the biggest asset which is there is that he's Ronnie Screwwala, but at the same time, if you talk to him, he would message back, and that means a lot. Like, you message him and he will message you exactly in 5 minutes, and that means a lot. Is And he also wants you to grow in terms of your creativity, and wants you to explore yourself more. I have lots to say about him, is because I've even thanked him in my book, actually. So I do feel that he gives a creative mind space, and space to grow. Yeah. And with Ashi, I do feel that she was the first person who got this whole anthology out in India, and we should give her that due respect, and also to get so many different directors together and make an anthology itself is a huge task. So it shows that how determined she is to get the right kind of people together and to make an anthology happen, which also becomes one after some time. So hats off to her for that, and to be uh, evolving with every year, because right now there are many who are doing these anthologies, but she was the first one who actually got it and made it very different and nice, and we should give her credit for that.
Correct. Now, Saket, this is the third film that you're co-writing with Zeenat Lakhani after Shaadi Ke Side Effects in Hindi medium. What works when the two of you start working together on a film script?
I think it's sort of the curiosity to explore relationships and sort of bring counterpoints to what we think makes relationships work or not work. I think that is what I think, and also that's just the the common interests. I mean, one of the key things is the key ideas behind the film is the fact that Earth is our favorite film, and we've seen it so many times together, and
Wow.
and the idea of in a way, so much of what the ending of the film is like Shabana Azmi ending in Earth. So those common influences, those common interests, and then definitely the sort of the inquisitiveness of exploring relationships and stories is what makes us work so well together.
I understand, Abhishek, about loving the fact that it's Bombay based, but the retro feel for the film. I know that you needed a single screen theater and a multiplex couldn't have done, but why take it back in time? Are you like me? Do you have fond memories of projector rooms as well as the ticket guy stamping tickets and those large steel coffee machines and sasta popcorn? So just why you decided to go for that retro feel?
I mean, one of the things that really got me excited as a filmmaker, one of the things that get me excited as a filmmaker for any film is the creation of the world. I mean, that for me is one of the most exciting things I do as a filmmaker. And this the story was set in somewhere in the 80s, and I jumped at the opportunity, although I had limited resources to achieve that period look and all of that. But the wonderful thing about South Bombay and in the theater that I shot is that there are parts of that city, part of that city where things are still frozen in time. I mean, you walk through certain lanes, you see some buildings, and you well could be in the 70s or the 80s. And I think South Bombay does that well. I spent the first 1.5 to 2 years of my life in Bombay. I spent in that part of Bombay. So I have fond memories. That's where I fell in love for the first time. So I mean, I have fond memories of that, and I thought that it'd be lovely to sort of through this story, explore that part of my life as well. And I did not. I mean, although my art director worked very hard to get in the look and all of that, but I think locations that we found actually did belong to that era. Like, for example, the room in which Nandu sleeps. I mean, that's exactly the way the room is. We had to do very little,
Wow.
So, and that's why the film looks, the period is sort of coming alive in the film because of the locations and how South Bombay is.
Nice. Now, Ashwini, in your film, Abhishek Banerjee's character searches for the mannequin and then has some closure. Was that something you and the writers discussed? I mean, he could have easily not gone looking for the mannequin now that it had been given away. So was it important to have closure in that aspect?
I feel closure for anything, any kind of problem or any kind of thinking is very important, is because that will start eating your head for the longest time. And when you do not have a closure, um, it's a beginning of a dump yard of emotions, which will let itself in various avatars. So it's important to have closures of any kind and to be truthful to yourself on why this happened in the first place. So and it is also one way of saying that in a time when I needed someone, you were there. And Abhishek's character is also not something like that where he will just let go. It's also showing gratification. It's also showing that to say a thank you for all the time, uh, when no one is around, there was someone around for him. So that's very important.
Beautiful. Saket, did you and Zenith have discussions on whether you want Kunal's character and Zoya's character to have a full-fledged affair? Or was it okay to say that they didn't have one and they remain friends?
I mean, there were various discussions about the ending, because it's a tricky ending. You want it, and structure of the short story. The most beautiful short stories are the ones. A lot of the short stories are defined by their endings. And we were constantly thinking about what needs to happen between them. I remember there was one version in which they imagine this entire affair between their spouses, get extremely worked up, end up sleeping with each other, and in the morning when they wake up, they ask themselves, did this really happen? And Kunal,
I thought of that.
because our infidelity is a consequence of what we imagined their infidelity was. So we went through various endings, and the idea was to sort of give the sense that what is the film after they've sort of walked away? Will they ever meet again? Or will they just stay, fond memories in each other's lives? So there were these various ideas that we sort of had discussed.
Okay. Abhishek, Hussain Haidari, I've always known as a poet and a lyric writer. He's co-written this film with you. Talk about his sensibilities and working with him, please.
Hussain is a great guy. I mean, and this was although I had met him socially a few times before Mugatar, this is the first time we worked together. And I knew that apart from being a poet, he had done some dialogue writing in some show. So I knew he had a sense of it. I had a sense of how this short story would be translated into script. I was very sure right from the beginning that I needed a poet's sensibility to come into, the writing of this, because, I imagine this film to be written not without so much dialogue, and to be, for the imagery to work as dialogue, sort of propel the story forward through imagery and through the intercutting of these two parallel lives and, telling. So Hussain, after some thinking became a natural choice for me. And I remember he came and I sent him the short story, he read the short story, then he came and met me in the office, and we spoke about the story for a little while, a couple of hours, in which I shared what my ideas were, and then we, sort of threw ideas at each other, and then I just let him be, and then when we came up with the first draft and sent it to me, I stood vindicated, because I had this little niggle of doubt, because for somebody who has not written like a full-fledged screenplay, but I was absolutely right, because the progression of ideas through images, through different parallel lives, that all came through very beautifully, because there were some images that were there in the short story, but some other things we had to conjure up, and there were some aspects of the story which are honest to the short story, but some you've taken a leap of faith and invented a few things, and all of these just fit right in. So the idea to work with somebody with the poet sensibility really came good with Hussain, and he's a great writing partner. I mean, he's a great guy.
Everybody is very familiar with Rinku's work. She's quite a sensation now over the last couple of years. But in terms of Dilzad, my God, he's just completely knocked it out of the park on this one. So, who brought him to you? I mean, is this your first collaboration with him, or has
Yes.
he been in an Abhishek Chaubey film before? I don't know. I
No.
can't recollect.
I was familiar with his work. I had seen Chittagong and I had seen him in Saket's film in Hindi medium. And, and my casting director, Taran, he was the one who mentioned it to me about Dilzad. And my co-producer, Hani Trehan, who's also a casting director himself, he said, man, you got to work with this guy. This guy's, waiting to explode because he's terrific. And I knew him. I mean, I sort of kind of knew of his work. And when he came down and met me in the office, I knew right away that he would be, he would be a great choice because, I was thinking of the character slightly differently until I met Dilzad, to be honest with you. When I met him, I realized that this guy is going to be able to bring something that I haven't even thought of. And it'd be lovely to watch. He's got this beautiful set of eyes. And his body language also, he's like a boy, although he's in his early 20s, I would think. But, and he brought this lovely vulnerability, to Nandu's character, which I think is great. And he is actually quite an accomplished actor. I mean, with more opportunities, people will realize, what a serious talent this guy is.
Fantastic. Well, I've run out of time. My last question is quickly to Saket. For someone as talented as you, I've always wondered why you're not more prolific and why there are such long gaps in between your films, bro.
I would say I'm extremely prolific. It's just that the producers don't produce as many of those scripts that I finish. I think they've become extremely selective with the ones that they want to make with me. But yeah, trust me, there are a lot of unmade scripts I've kept on the side. Maybe I'll show them to you sometime.
And Ashwini, how does it feel to be a published author? It must feel wonderful. All the compliments coming your way.
I don't know. I just always wanted to write a novel, and I wrote it, and it's been received well, so which is great. So, and maybe I'll write my second one also, if I need to find that kind of time, but not another pandemic, definitely.
Guys, thank you for your time, and thank you for doing this incredible trilogy. Ankahi Kahaniya was an absolute treat. Ashwini, Saket, and Abhishek, and hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. See you.
Thank you.
94.3 Radio 1. One world, your station.